You may not know much about Colorado's most valuable business, but Palantir may know a lot about you. New reports say that tech company based in Denver could be working with the Trump administration to build a giant database tracking information about Americans. Here's Mark Salinger.
At two addresses listed online for Palantir's Denver headquarters, there are no signs attracting attention to Colorado's most valuable company. Palantir usually stays out of the headlines, but last week the New York Times published this one. Trump taps Palantir to compile data on Americans. On March 20th, President Trump signed an executive order aimed at eliminating information silos, opening the door for the government to share data across agencies. That could center here in Colorado. The Times reports Denver-based AI data technology company Palantir has been awarded more than $100 million in government spending to organize and analyze data, opening the door for the Trump administration to potentially create a master database of personal information.
There's no indication that laws are going to change. The issue is whether the laws are being complied with.
DU data privacy law professor Bernard Chow points to the 1974 Privacy Act, which is supposed to protect Americans from government data being used for illegitimate purposes.
The federal government has many different systems of records, tax records, health records, voting records, whatever. And Palantir, in theory, could put them all together and create this sort of massive database about having all the information the government has on everyone.
Palantir declined to comment to the Times about its work with the Trump administration and did not respond to 9 News' request. The Times reports Palantir is already working with the Department of Homeland Security and the Pentagon, and speaking with the Social Security Administration and IRS.
So that's all that this Palantir deal is partly.
Vice President J.D. Vance defended the agreement to Theo Vaughn on his podcast this week.
My understanding is that it's just taking, DHS has information, FBI has information, Secretary of the Treasury has information, and making it possible for that information to be searched by whoever is looking for it. That's my understanding.
So if indeed Palantir is building this information sharing system, as the Times reports, creates an unprecedented database where everything from health records to financial data is accessible all in one place by the government. There are legitimate and illegitimate purposes for all that data, and at this point we just don't know what that data will be used for by the Trump administration, Kyle.
I'm curious where Republicans are coming down on this, because it used to be that Republicans didn't like big government in this stuff, but that podcast bro didn't sound all that skeptical.
No, you have Theo Vaughn asking J.D. Vance about Palantir, and you have a lot of traditionally MAGA Twitter accounts saying, hey, this isn't what we signed up for. We want privacy. We want our rights to be protected, things like that. It's gone so far as a lot of these traditionally conservative MAGA-leading Twitter accounts, or whatever you want to call them, are going as far as to say, hey, this isn't what we want. You're a traitor, Trump. Obviously, we just don't know what's going to happen in the future with this.
Interesting to know it's in our backyard. Mark Salinger, thank you. Denver Public Schools is dropping its lawsuit against the Trump administration, the one seeking to prevent ICE immigration raids at or near schools. They're still calling it a win for the district. They claim that they have forced new transparency from the Department of Homeland Security. DPS filed this suit back in February after targeted ICE raids happened at several locations around Denver. None of the February raids was on a DPS campus, but the district said that the raids still caused significant fear for their families. The raids came shortly after the Department of Homeland Security said it was lifting restrictions on ICE raids at so-called protected areas, places like churches and schools. The district's lawsuit said the Trump administration didn't publish these new rules or provide specifics about how the policy change would impact schools. Well, the district now says that it has clarity about the new ICE policies and that it believes that schools remain protected under the new policy. In a statement today, Denver Public Schools says it could refile that lawsuit if immigration agents do start conducting raids at or near school campuses. My Pillow guy Mike Lindell has no regrets. Testifying at his election rigging defamation trial in Denver today, Lindell said he does not regret attacking a former executive for Dominion voting systems as treasonous, a criminal responsible for the biggest crime in history. And Lindell even picked out some new targets inside the courtroom. Lindell was being questioned this morning by his own attorney, what should have been safe territory, when Lindell decided to defend his traitor comment by saying He calls lots of people traitors. I've called 50 to 100 people traitors, Lindell said. There's media in this courtroom right now. I've called them traitors. He referenced his accusation that the Dominion exec committed crimes against humanity, said 2 journalists in that courtroom were also responsible for crimes against humanity. There are 2 people in this room who do it all the time, Lindell said. Lindell's attorney quickly interjected, warning him that he needed to stop talking about specific people in the courtroom. Lindell said he still believed everything he's ever said about election rigging, still believes his accusations against Dominion and its executive who's suing him, but he added, quote, "You could call it hyper, whatever that word is." The word presumably was hyperbole, exaggerated statements or claims not meant to be taken literally, although Lindell has also testified that he has evidence of his claims, although his attorneys have said they don't need to prove that Lindell's claims are true to win this case. So it used to be that when something tragic happened, that Coloradans, Americans would set aside their differences and present a united front. Instead of unity, after the anti-Semitic firebombing in Boulder, Colorado's congressional delegation put forth competing resolutions about it. Democrats wanted one that condemned anti-Semitism and violence. Republicans wanted another that also called for more immigration enforcement. Republican Rep. Gabe Evans' resolution formally denounces the attack in Boulder, and it calls for increased cooperation between local law enforcement and federal immigration authorities. That's been a sticking point in the law in Colorado. The resolution names the suspect in the attack, the Egyptian national Mohammed Soleiman, who overstayed a visa to stay in the U.S. And Evans' resolution says this attack is proof of the, quote, dangers of not removing aliens. Today, Evans doubled down in a press conference, claiming Colorado's state restrictions on law enforcement cooperation with ICE left federal law enforcement unprepared for the attack. Evans specifically pointed out the suspect's attempt to purchase a gun in 2024, which was turned away, rejected. Evans is claiming that that rejection was not elevated to federal authorities. CBI tells us it was, that their policy is to notify ICE electronically whenever somebody without legal status in the U.S. attempts to purchase a gun. When we pointed that out to Evans' office, spokesperson told us notifying ICE is not enough in their eyes. They say CBI should have instead alerted the state's Information Analysis Center, which shares information with multiple federal agencies. Republicans were united in supporting Evans' measure. 113 Democrats voted against the measure, including Colorado Democrats Jason Crow and Diana DeGette. Earlier this week, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries called out Rep. Evans, saying he's politicizing the tragedy.
Anti-Semitism is a scourge on America. Shouldn't be weaponized politically. It's not a Democratic issue or an American issue or a Republican issue. And who is this guy? He's not seriously concerned with combating anti-Semitism in America. This is not a serious effort.
Separate resolution condemning anti-Semitism brought forward by Colorado Democrat Joe Neguse passed the House 400-0, with 2 representatives voting present. The Trump administration is moving to drastically cut the budget for the National Science Foundation. Boulder's National Center for Atmospheric Research is part of that. Critics say this is the Trump administration just trying to shut up scientists who talk about climate change. Here's our Spencer Soisher.
When you talk about Boulder, everyone sees the place a little differently.
Boulder takes great pride in being a center for scientific discovery and research investment.
John Taylor with the city's chamber sees Boulder and its more than a dozen federal labs as a hub for world-renowned research.
It's so important to our innovation economy that we have that kind of expertise here in our community.
He says that research and the researchers help stimulate the local economy. But what if that research is drastically cut?
We're deeply concerned.
The National Science Foundation is submitting its budget request to Congress with a near 40% cut for Boulder-based NCAR, the National Center for Atmospheric Research. It's a $50 million difference.
That is such a self-inflicted wound to our country.
Dan Powers runs CoLabs, a group that promotes the work coming out of the state's federal labs like NCAR.
They provide ongoing and fundamental understanding of the weather processes and climate processes that affect everybody every day in our country.
He's puzzled by the proposed cuts because he says they aren't providing any alternative.
It's just, we're going to cut it. I don't know how else to read that other than we don't feel like getting more information about climate change.
NCAR didn't say if the possible cuts will bring mass layoffs, but the chamber worries what happens to Boulder, its economy and reputation, if the researchers leave.
The kinds of jobs that happen at these federal laboratories and the scientific work is conducted by folks who have very specialized skills. We want to keep them here locally.
The National Science Foundation declined to comment. Collabs believes the cut proposals are misunderstood. For example, NCAR doesn't do weather forecasting, but they are looking for ways to help improve long-term forecasting, things that can really benefit maybe a business on a weekend that's busy or a farmer that needs to know what they need to do if a storm is coming.
I imagine that unlike maybe some other government operations, it's a little bit tough to quantify how much these labs save the public, right? As they're training people, they're educating people, you can't always put like a dollar value on that.
Right, and you can put a dollar value on how much is being spent for them, but the concern here, again, their argument is, again, that you cannot put some sort of number on it. If you prepare someone before a hurricane comes to town and everybody takes preparations beforehand, you can't judge the fact that, well, there wasn't any damage because people were prepared. They locked their stuff up.
Sure. Spencer Soysher, thank you. Hey, guess who's back? The guy who left the Colorado Republican Party in ashes is rising to a new job with the Trump administration. Chevron says its well that went all Old Faithful on us was the fault of a contractor.
Kids' play space is just more and more limited nowadays.
And a new playground project, encouraging kids to get their hands dirty. Next. Dave Williams is getting a heck of a consolation prize for running the Colorado Republican Party into the ground. As suspected when he did not try to run for re-election as state GOP chair, he's now taking a job with the Trump administration. Our partners at Colorado Politics report that Williams will be a senior advisor for the International Trade Administration, which promotes U.S. exports and, quote, defends against unfair trade. Williams has been making it clear for years he will do anything for DJT. He changed party bylaws on neutrality so the Colorado Republican Party could endorse Trump in the GOP presidential primary. And he attempted to run for Congress using the nickname Dave Let's Go Brandon Williams, right there on the ballot in 2022. And former GOP vice chair under Williams, Hope Scheppelman, is launching a Republican primary challenge against Congressman Jeff Hurd in Colorado's 3rd Congressional District. That's there on the western slope. It's Lauren Boebert's old district. Scheppelman's part of the party's far-right contingent. This is actually a video of when she convened a party meeting under a bridge to hide from other members. She's criticized Hurd for his more moderate positions. Her campaign announcement called Hurd a liberal elitist, dead set against President Trump. Hurd's been supportive of Trump's policies, but occasionally has voiced some slight hesitation. Chevron is blaming a contractor for that big oil well blowout in northeast Colorado back in April. The company says a technician with a contractor improperly installed equipment on that well pad, which caused the spewing of the gas and oil and water. The equipment fell off and it broke the contractor's leg in the process. It took 4 days to secure the well. Chevron says 4 of the 14 families that had to evacuate still are not home to this day. Chevron says it's working with the state to remove all the contaminated soil and to check the air quality. Chevron says they're also updating their wellhead installation procedures for contractors.
A warm, dry, late spring day, but we're looking at the potential for a brief shower here in Denver after a day with 90 degrees downtown, 87 officially out at the airport. Average high is about 82. A warm, dry day, but those clouds could bring a rumble of thunder and a brief shower as temperatures continue very warm this hour. Wind hasn't really been a big factor, but lightning is something that's now starting to show up on our radar. As we turn the lightning detection on, we're seeing some good shower activity in southwestern Colorado, an area of our state that's dealing with severe drought conditions. Severe weather threat remains low and east and south of the state. Temperatures will be comfortable this evening, and we're back in the upper 80s again tomorrow. But there's a little moisture coming in underneath the ridge, so there's a slight chance of a rain shower tonight and the chance of a thunderstorm both tomorrow afternoon and Thursday, ahead of a hot, dry weekend with highs in the low to mid 90s for Father's Day on Sunday.
Aurora City Council is going to great lengths to shut down continued public protests over the police shooting of an unarmed black man. City Council's slowly been restricting public comment sessions for months, and now they're shutting them down altogether. Last night, City Council voted to indefinitely suspend all in-person council meetings and public comment, to hold off on them until a civil case over the death of Kylan Lewis is resolved. Lewis was the man shot and killed by an Aurora police officer last May, and protesters have been disrupting City Council meetings ever since, demanding accountability for the officer who killed Lewis. The city has denied any liability for the shooting, and the officer, Michael Dick, has since been cleared by both APD and prosecutors. Last week, Kylan Lewis's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the officer and the city. Aurora City Council says they will meet virtually and refuse to hear from protesters until that case is decided. A new sensory playground does away with plastic slides and monkey bars, instead encourages kids to get their hands dirty, experience some nature. Reminder, there are a couple of ways to experience this program each night. We stream at 6 p.m. on 9 News Plus, and next is a podcast, wherever you find those. Not all playgrounds are built equal. School in Denver built theirs a little differently as a way to get kids off the usual playground equipment and have them connect with nature. Our Byron Reed has that.
3, 2, 1.
The grand opening of a playground creates new memories.
What kind of noise is that?
Bat sound.
Experiences 5-year-old Akira Munoz won't soon forget.
All the fishing, the plants, the fishing, the things, the microphone, the climber.
Munoz is a student at Clayton Early Learning, where they've added 2 new play areas designed for their infants, toddlers, and preschoolers.
I only seen the workers making it, but I don't know how it was going to be.
But the spaces aren't just playgrounds. They're called sensory environments that connect students with nature through hands-on experiences.
Knowing that we live in an urban area, children's experience and opportunities to have really nature-based opportunities is more limited.
Jenny Smith is the Director of Comprehensive Services of the campus that gives students from underserved communities more opportunities to be outside.
Play space is just more and more limited nowadays, especially when we have families that are living in apartments. One of the things we know is just by purely being outside, it helps children's regulation and their ability to calm.
The new areas include natural materials, textured pathways, and sound walls. The idea is to engage students' senses of sight, sound, touch, smell, and hearing.
And it's really focusing on giving kids additional regulation strategies so that when they're going back into the classroom, they're more ready to learn.
The hope is the spaces will build fond feelings of having a good time on the playground.
Because all this stuff is fun. Fun.
For Next, I'm Byron Reed.
We're back with your feedback. Marilyn has some. I've been reading the emails. A lot of it is pillowy soft tonight. We'll have that next. Feedback from Mark, who says, can you imagine the amount of street cred Mike Lindell's defense team will get if they win? They'll be able to say our client shot himself in both feet and we still prevailed. I think there's something to that. You know what? I hear a lot of people saying online that this case is a slam dunk against Mike Lindell. Being in court each day, I don't see it that way. Remember, his team only needs one juror to agree with him at the end of the day. And they're throwing a lot of the MAGA stuff out there, trying to check those boxes. 8 jurors, you just need one. We'll cover it all the way.